Hey everybody, welcome back into Going Public. This is Harry McCullough. We're talking with David Rome, of course, the Director of Public Works for Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government, and Clay Knockahan, who is the Terrebonne Parish Director of Solid Waste and Vegetation. I read that because I got to get those right. You guys work in government, and you're finding out a lot about how government works, right? And a lot of different things. We were talking a little bit before we started. We're going to talk a lot about debris removal, obviously, what you guys do. Bayou debris removal is a whole different ball game, and it steps across feds, states, local jurisdictions, which makes your job a little different, right?
You're right, Harry. Yeah, Clay and I have been in government for a long time. He's been a little bit longer than I have, but yeah, this has been a project. The debris removal as a whole is ginormous. Removal from the waterway is got its own complications and is a beast of a different burden. So we have been working since right after the storm, trying to make the waterways safe. Of course, drainage is what is on most people's minds. Is, you know, what if there's trees down in the canals or something like that, and we can't see it, and there's a rain and people flood, and it's a very valid concern. And I had that concern while watching Hurricane Ida come through. So my very first request to the Governor's Office of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness, GOSEP, was for assistance, technical assistance, on coming down and helping us clear these waterways. On a previous episode of Going Public, I had put out there that we have over 1,100 miles of ditches, culverts, roadway, waterways in Terrebonne Parish that we'd have to clear, so it was not going to be an easy task. Currently, we're about 70% complete. And I'm sure there's a lot of people saying, wait, 70%? You ain't touched by your Terrebonne, you ain't touching. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But we have cleaned out almost 1,000 cubic yards of vegetation and construction debris that was in the bayous because of the storm. And that is just from the navigable waterways that are south of the Intracoastal. So the southern end of Bayou du Large, the southern end of Petit Caillou, the southern end of Grand Caillou, those waterways are all navigable, and those are either complete or very near complete. The northern part of those bayous are going to be in the next few weeks, and then we're really hoping that we can get we have some assistance from the state and the federal government about Bayou Terrebonne, but we'll get to that in a little bit. If we could pull up the first map just to kind of show your audience where we've been at, where we're at. All of those dots that you see is actually a cluster of debris that has been removed. So the bigger the cluster, there's probably about 500 different work orders or work tickets for that one little area. As I said, we've done a lot. That is everything that's completed. We do currently have some teams that are working on Ile de Jean Charles Drainage Canal, Bayou Terrebonne, Bayou Terrebonne south of the Intracoastal. They're around Presque right now, so they'll be wrapping up soon with that. And then they just started on St. Louis Canal behind Morrison Avenue in downtown Houma. And that's an important thing for that neighborhood.
So what am I looking at? The red is issues of blockage, and the green has now been cleared? What does that mean?
Sort of. So the red is the trees and all that they had to cut, because if the tree fell but wasn't in the water all the way, they removing that as well. So that's the vegetation and all. The green is actually the offload points and how many piles that they had, so that way they can track how the quantities of the materials that they're removing from the waterways.
I see. So yeah, you guys have been working quite a bit, and you know, I guess when I think about navigation, and I think that's the thing you got to clear for boats first of all, you know. So I guess that's why the southern part would be the areas where you want to go. Intracoastal and the navigation canal, those are federal waterways, right? So y'all don't have anything to do with that.
Correct. So, you know, a lot of people were like, well, the Houma Navigational Canal was cleaned a few days afterward, and Intracoastal was cleaned. Why y'all can't do it? Each waterway is unique in its own right. Just because that you can drive a boat in it doesn't necessarily mean that it qualifies as a federally navigable waterway. So whose jurisdiction it falls under varies, whether it's the Coast Guard, the Army Corps of Engineer, the NRCS, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is part of the USDA, and they're who we're actually working for with some of the other bigger projects that are coming down. And I brought along some pictures of the work that's going on in these bayous on the southern end of the parish, and essentially what we're seeing is there's barges with a excavator type claw on them, and they're just pulling anything that is metal or wood or trees. Not so much structures. They have been able to remove some of the structures, but any vessels or any kind of hazardous material containers that may be floating in the water or on the bank, they can't touch that yet. That is going to be that has to be a separate project. And the reason why, Harry, that all these projects have to be separated is because of the funding that's available for it. So, here in Terrebonne Parish, Clay will tell you, we get our budget for the year for maintenance and operations, but it doesn't include all this emergency stuff. So we do have emergency money set aside, and as we do all this work, Clay spent over $30 million already. I'm not quite there yet, but we want to make sure that FEMA will give that money back to us when it's all said and done. And in order to get FEMA to give us that money, we have to jump through every one of those hoops. They have certain guidelines and all that we have to follow. Otherwise, we can potentially risk not getting a penny back from the federal government if we don't follow all these guidelines.
Right. So it might be an inconvenience, but it would say millions of dollars could fall into taxpayers that we don't have right now.
Exactly. So, we're talking about almost a whole fiscal year of operations for emergency recovery, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
You're talking about some of the hoops, and so you have to finish out all the certain allocated funds first before you can ask for more?
Sort of. So, a good example of the current hoop that we're jumping through is anything that we take out of that water, we have to document very carefully. Not just take a picture of it. It has to be, the longitude, the latitude has to be taken on it. It has to be recorded. And then it has to be a qualifying thing. We can't go and remove somebody's, washing machine out of the thing that's out of the bayou that's been sitting there for the last 60 years.
Right, that doesn't qualify.
Right, that don't qualify.
Ida,
it has to be Ida-related storm. So, a lot of people are saying, well, while y'all there, y'all can do that. Well, we can. But what will happen is the federal government will look at it, FEMA will look at it and say, you know what, this is not eligible. Sorry, you're going to have to eat that bill. And I don't want to give that burden to our taxpayers in Terrebonne.
Right. So that's where going from Terrebonne, Bayou Terrebonne, from the Intracoastal Schriever, the Big Bayou Black to the Gibson floodgate. That's kind of what you're running into. So.
Right. So that is the hottest topic right now with the waterway thing. Is everybody's saying that we have not touched Bayou Terrebonne. We're just sitting around, watching all this, and there's no one in this parish that wants Bayou Terrebonne or Big Bayou Black cleaned more than I do, because they are very important to our drainage plans. And Mr. Dove worked very hard.
Spent a lot of money on that.
Yes,
right.
Mr. Dove has spent a lot of money and has worked very hard on getting this parish up to par with our drainage, and those are two critical pieces of infrastructure. The problem, though, Harry, is Bayou Terrebonne, we have no servitude on. We have no access. We have no rights. We as a parish, as a governmental agency, it is NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, who has jurisdiction over it. However, it's not like a phone call, hey, come clean up your bayou.
Right.
If we go to the next,
fourth one.
the fourth slide, you can see kind of an idea of one of the hoops that they're getting us to jump through is we had to go out, and there's 58 segments of Bayou Terrebonne from the Intracoastal all the way up to the Schriever overpass. And each one of those segments, we had to go in and GPS and photograph what we want to take it out of the bayou for their approval. That was, of course, a very daunting task. We did it actually in 3 days, which I thought was pretty amazing for my guys to do that. We turned that over. NRCS comes back and says, y'all did a great job. We got your money. One last thing, you need to apply for a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers.
And these guys are feds, and then you got to go to another fed. You got to go down the hallway.
Right. The local agency has to go down the hallway to the other fed and say, hey, may I please have permission to allow your other federal agency to put equipment into the bayou. And that's really the bureaucracy that we're dealing with, and myself and Clay and Mr. Dove and everyone that's been involved in this is really frustrated as the general public is with it. However, if we don't, we stand to lose $8 million, and that's not a bath that we can take.
Right. On top of Clay's 30-something million that you already spent, right? So yeah, we don't want to get too high on both of those. So you both got to do things right. So yeah, it's very important that you do that. And when well, you say you already turned in some of the things. Can you get permits? It's not going to be a year.
No. So there's a lot of concerns that I have. The chief concern is the flooding concern. So I think realistically within the next month or so, we're going to start seeing that action come through with the Army Corps of Engineers, according to them.
It's almost spring again, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And Clay, you're a good-looking fellow, but we want to hear from you too. We're going to take another break here, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you got a final pass that's coming up that's very important for people to know about. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back with more Going Public right after this.
A new company with a lot of history. GIS Engineering has rapidly grown its brand around an experienced team of professionals. GIS Engineering is a full-service planning, engineering, procurement, and construction management company specializing in coastal protection and restoration, upstream and downstream industrial, and transportation infrastructure projects. Putting people first, GIS Engineering, a new company with a lot of history.
Pelican Waste and Debris is your local company. We don't just work here, we live here and understand the unique challenges that face our region. Our commitment to our community and customers and love for Louisiana keeps us motivated. Pelican meets every residential and commercial service need, offering roll-off, front-load, and compactor services, ideal for hotels, restaurants, apartments, construction or industrial sites, and much more. We also make recycling simple and cost-efficient, offering single-stream recycling program options. We have set the highest standards for environmental protection, community engagement, and guaranteed client satisfaction. Visit pelicanwaste.net or call us at 985-873-9553 to save money with hassle-free service. Our team has over 100 years of experience, so we know how to make you happy. The sky is the limit, so fly with the Pelican.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Going Public. David Rome and Clay Knockan are here, of course, with Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government. We're talking about debris removal and all those kind of things. Clay, let's talk about your pickup. You're on what they call the final pass. And I guess you had a first, you had a second, and you have a final pass. And we're rounding into the final area, right?
Correct. The misconception right now is that everybody thinks that today was the last day we're going to pick up debris, and it's not. We asked everybody to have their debris out by today because we're going to start in the north end of the parish and we're going to work our way all the way down to the south, picking up, making a fine pass of every parish roadway in Terrebonne Parish. Once we finish that, all we're going to need is people to call us and say, hey, we got
right, it doesn't go away.
It's not something that we're just forgetting about. But it's one of those protocols, like David was talking about, a hoop that we got to go through. This is a final pass, and then we're going to be moving into the private property demolition, which is still open. We're still asking people if they need help with demolition or property cleanup to call or visit the website. They can get it through our webpage at tpcg.org and fill out the application. Fill it out. If you got doubt, well, I don't know if I qualify, fill it out, and most we can tell you is no, that you don't qualify, but at least you'll have that answer
Yeah, explain who does kind of qualify. So if you have a residence, you have something that got really wrecked during the storm, or it's dilapidated, it's fallen down, and you can't physically or you can't financially do it, you might be able to qualify.
Correct. If you didn't have insurance, the two major things that our contractor looks at is that you didn't request FEMA funding and got another FEMA program, and now you're
Right.
dipping into this FEMA program, or you got insurance money that would have covered it. You may get some insurance money, but not enough to cover the project. So we encourage everybody so that we can look into it and try to help. We want to help everybody that we can.
Right. And
clean
you
their
don't want
property.
a Katrina type situation where you got dilapidated stuff that nobody takes care of. You're trying to rebuild your neighborhood and it's just sitting there with, overgrown and all that kind of stuff.
Right, we don't want it to wind up 2 or 3 years down
Right.
the road in nuisance abatement and
Right.
condemnation and the parish having to pay for it. If we can do it right now, get your property clean, and hopefully you can do something.
And you
with
don't
it
have to
after.
sign anything away. Y'all clean it and everything.
That's the good part about this. Once we go in there, we clean it and we get out of there, and it's your property, just free of all the debris.
Right. It's a good program. And just to be sure, so the final pass does not mean you're not picking up trash anymore. So from then on, it'll go back to the old rules, right? Where after this final pass, which every road in the parish is going to be covered, you can still call you guys and say, hey, I got some stuff. some
Every
bigger
parish
stuff.
road, we're still,
right.
right now, the state is still doing their final pass, and that's
Right.
not released it. That's another one of those things that if you don't follow that
Right.
guideline, FEMA can come back and say, well, nope, you picked up something ineligible and we're not paying for it. But once the state says they're finished their final pass, then we'll go back to the normal pickup on state roads and all. But right now, we're still on the state debris pickup and parish right-of-way pickup.
I got you. So, Sunken Vessels, David. So, this is the removal project, same kind of deal, right? So, what's going on with that?
Yep. So, the bayou debris removal project has many different legs, as I had said, and one of those legs is the Sunken Vessel removal project that is coming up. And the reason why it has gotten so far along is, one, most of the vessels that did take on water and sink were salvageable, and we have to allow the owners of those vessels an opportunity, because that's really their livelihood.
Sure.
Okay. And so the vessel removal project is just that. It's not a salvage project. It's a removal. And when the contractor, whoever gets that bid, goes in there and starts removing these vessels, they're gone. There is no, hey, wait, that's mine. So there's a process that we have to go through. And the first process is, just like for everything else, we have to get boots on the ground, go in, GPS, each and every one of these vessels. Then they actually have to find the owners of these vessels. And it's quite difficult because some of these vessels are owned by out-of-state
Or
companies
abandoned, right.
Correct, or they are abandoned, exactly. So we have to give the owners a fair shot, be able to salvage their vessel before we go in there. So I don't have a timeline yet, but what will happen is there will be a lot of announcements in the newspaper, here on HTV. There will be letters that go out to the owners of these vessels and give them 30 days notice that in 30 days, we're removing this vessel from this body of water at this location. If you choose
want it, go
to
get
salvage,
it.
go get
Right,
it.
right.
And then we'll have to go out for bid and get
How
all
many
that removed.
vehicles we talking about?
So for the
Vessels,
last count, this is vessels and hazardous material containers, which is a fancy word for gas tanks,
right,
right? So most boats have a gas tank on it, but some of them separate and some float off in different directions. The last count was around 83. So that doesn't really sound like a lot, but the average cost to remove one of those
Yeah, big
vessels
boat.
is probably about $4,000 or $5,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you don't charge, I mean,
No,
you don't try and
that
get
is
your
not
money
part
back
of this
from
program. This is for the safety and welfare of the communities that are affected by this.
and again, is that one of those things you have to prove that it was done by IDA or is just in the way? Does it
That's a
matter?
very good question, and that's one of those things that we're still kind of working through with the legal side of things. What is our responsibility? Because again, if people saw what how a channel of water is split up, the federal, state water bottoms, and who's responsible for what. It's very, very confusing because a lot of these boats are pretty big and cross those boundaries from federal into state and of course us.
Yeah, and of course, anything on water is different legislation, right? Jones Act, all those kind of different things
Exactly.
that go into it. So
Exactly.
it's always different. Hey, we expecting a cold snap this weekend. So are we going to close down bridges and roads?
I'm really hoping not, Harry. I mean, I think I seen enough snow when I was in Big Sky earlier this year. I don't need to see any more snow here, but I did want to make sure that your viewers knew that this morning we did get a huge order of calcium chloride, which is what we treat the bridges with to keep them open. It stops them from freezing over. But right now, it's kind of up in the air. It looks like we're going to start getting some freezing rain late Thursday, early into Friday, and if that happens, Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government's Public Works is ready to take it on.
Well, are we worried about schools, buses, that kind of stuff?
I don't think so. I don't think, usually the reason down here, we don't stay below freezing very long.
hard
So
freeze,
it's, the magic number is 28 degrees. They're saying 26
For 5 hours or
for about 5 hours. And I don't think we're going to hit that threshold. If we do, hopefully we don't run into the problems that we've ran into the past with not having DOTD on board. Again, not to slander our state agencies, but it really is a team effort.
Sure. Oh, sure. And, and all of that kind of stuff. And like I said, when you cross all those jurisdictions, that's where it gets confusing for, people at home and for
confusing and frustrating.
right. All right. So what's next? What else is going on?
So after we finish with going back to the
Right,
water
the removal.
the removals and all, once we finish with the entire thing, we're going to have another assessment, aerial assessment of the parish. Believe it or not, most of this stuff we were able to go on immediately after the storm, go on to this program that they gave us aerial photographs, and we would be able to pinpoint blockages. And I had mentioned at the beginning of the show about how my first request was for assistance on clearing our drainage canals and outfalls. We were given an entire battalion of Army Corps of Engineers, active duty soldiers, who went out and helped us clear some of those. They weren't able to remove the trees off of the premises, but they were actually able to move them and open up those waterways, and we're going behind them now and removing that. So it's a slow, tedious process, and one of the things that Clay and I was talking about in the green room is in our experience and opinion is we're way ahead of the curve here. We thought this would take years,
right.
And we're 5 months
Is there
into
anything
it.
being blocked right now from drainage-wise?
Right now, no. There's no active
It looks like
drainage.
water's moving pretty
The
good.
Bayou Terrebonne, like we were saying, we monitor it very closely. We have monitoring stations on it. If we see segment 8 getting high and segment 9 and segment 7 are still low, then we know there's a blockage there, and we'll be able to get out there and try doing something about it. It is not pretty. I will definitely admit that.
Sure.
But at this time, there is no immediate threat to the public because
Right.
of Bayou Terrebonne.
And Clay, it looks like, even those big piles are now moving out. You can see them, they've been chipped up or whatever, and seems like things are clearing up there as well.
It's moving along pretty good. Just looking at my numbers, so far, 51,000 loads was picked up on the side of the road. Debris was picked up for a total of 2.9 million cubic yards of debris. That's just Terrebonne right away. That's not counting the state, what they got. They
Right.
probably up to a million themselves. So
Right.
we've, like David said, I when I first looked at it, I said June, July, we should be able to see daylight, and here we are in January, and we got a lot of daylight. Now.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a great works. We all kind of complain about different things, but having people coming down here, the resources, the people, even the ones that the big trucks that come help. Thank goodness we got the we got the roofs put on, and mostly we're headed in the right direction. So
Right.
appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you, Harry.
All right, that'll do it for Going Public. I'm Harry McCullough. Thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next time.